Paper 150. The Third Preaching Tour. On Sunday evening, January 16, A.D. 29, Abner, with the apostles of John, reached Bethsaida and went into joint conference with Andrew and the apostles of Jesus the next day. Abner and his associates made their headquarters at Hebron and were in the habit of coming up to Bethsaida periodically for these conferences. Among the many matters considered by this joint conference was the practice of anointing the sick with certain forms of oil in connection with prayers for healing. Again did Jesus decline to participate in their discussions or to express himself regarding their conclusions. The apostles of John had always used the anointing oil in their ministry to the sick and afflicted, and they sought to establish this as a uniform practice for both groups. But the apostles of Jesus refused to bind themselves by such a regulation. On Tuesday, January 18, the 24 were joined by the tested evangelists, about 75 in number, at the Zebedee house in Bethsaida, preparatory to be sent forth on the third preaching tour of Galilee. This third mission continued for a period of 7 weeks. The evangelists were sent out in groups of 5, while Jesus and the 12 traveled together most of the time, the apostles going out 2 and 2 to baptize believers as occasion required. For a period of almost 3 weeks, Abner and his associates also worked with the evangelistic groups, advising them and baptizing believers. They visited Magdala, Tiberias, Nazareth, and all the principal cities and villages of central and southern Galilee, all the places previously visited, and many others. This was their last message to Galilee, except to the northern portions. 1. The Women's Evangelistic Corps. Of all the daring things which Jesus did in connection with his earth career, the most amazing was his sudden announcement on the evening of January 16. On the morrow we will set apart 10 women for the ministering work of the kingdom. At the beginning of the 2 weeks period during which the apostles and the evangelists were to be absent from Bethsaida on their furlough, Jesus requested David to summon his parents back to their home and to dispatch messengers calling to Bethsaida 10 devout women who had served in the administration of the former encampment and the tented infirmary. These women had all listened to the instruction given the young evangelists, but it never occurred to either themselves or their teachers that Jesus would dare to commission women to teach the gospel of the kingdom and minister to the sick. These 10 women selected and commissioned by Jesus were Susanna, the daughter of the former Chazan of the Nazareth synagogue, Joanna, the wife of Chuza, the steward of Herod Antipas, Elizabeth, the daughter of a wealthy Jew of Tiberias and Sepphoris, Martha, the elder sister of Andrew and Peter, Rachel, the sister-in-law of Jude, the master's brother in the flesh, Nasanta, the daughter of Elman, the Syrian physician, Milcah, a cousin of the apostle Thomas, Ruth, the eldest daughter of Matthew Levi, Celta, the daughter of a Roman centurion, and Agamon, a widow of Damascus. Subsequently, Jesus added 2 other women to this group, Mary Magdalene and Rebekah, the daughter of Joseph of Arimathea. Jesus authorized these women to effect their own organization and directed Judas to provide funds for their equipment and for pack animals. The 10 elected Susanna as their chief and Joanna as their treasurer. From this time on they furnished their own funds. Never again did they draw upon Judas for support. It was most astounding in that day, when women were not even allowed on the main floor of the synagogue, being confined to the women's gallery, to behold them being recognized as authorized teachers of the new gospel of the kingdom. The charge which Jesus gave these 10 women as he set them apart for gospel teaching and ministry was the Emancipation Proclamation which set free all women and for all time. No more was man to look upon woman as his spiritual inferior. This was a decided shock to even the 12 apostles, notwithstanding they had many times heard the Master say that in the kingdom of heaven there is neither rich nor poor, free nor bond, male nor female, all are equally the sons and daughters of God. They were literally stunned when he proposed formally to commission these 10 women as religious teachers and even to permit their traveling about with them. The whole country was stirred up by this proceeding, the enemies of Jesus making great capital out of this move, but everywhere the women believers in the good news stood staunchly behind their chosen sisters, and voiced no uncertain approval of this tardy acknowledgment of woman's place in religious work. And this liberation of women, giving them due recognition, was practiced by the apostles immediately after the Master's departure, albeit they fell back to the olden customs in subsequent generations. Throughout the early days of the Christian Church, women teachers and ministers were called deaconesses and were accorded general recognition. But Paul, despite the fact that he conceded all this in theory, never really incorporated it into his own attitude, and personally found it difficult to carry out in practice. 2. The stop at Magdala. As the apostolic party journeyed from Bethsaida, the women traveled in the rear. During the conference time, they always sat in a group in front and to the right of the speaker. Increasingly, women had become believers in the gospel of the kingdom, and it had been a source of much difficulty and no end of embarrassment when they had desired to hold personal converse with Jesus or one of the apostles. Now all this was changed. When any of the women believers desired to see the Master or confer with the apostles, they went to Susanna, and in company with one of the 12 women evangelists, they would go at once into the presence of the Master or one of his apostles. It was at Magdala that the women first demonstrated their usefulness and vindicated the wisdom of their choosing. Andrew had imposed rather strict rules upon his associates about doing personal work with women, especially with those of questionable character. When the party entered Magdala, these 10 women evangelists were free to enter the evil resorts and preach the glad tidings directly to all their inmates. And when visiting the sick, these women were able to draw very close in their ministry to their afflicted sisters. As the result of the ministry of these 10 women, afterward known as the 12 women at this place, Mary Magdalene was won for the kingdom. Through a succession of misfortunes and in consequence of the attitude of reputable society toward women who commit such errors of judgment, this woman had found herself in one of the nefarious resorts of Magdala. It was Martha and Rachel who made plain to Mary that the doors of the kingdom were open to even such as she. Mary believed the good news and was baptized by Peter the next day. Mary Magdalene became the most effective teacher of the gospel among this group of 12 women evangelists. She was set apart for such service, together with Rebecca, at Jotapata about 4 weeks subsequent to her conversion. Mary and Rebecca, with the others of this group, went on through the remainder of Jesus' life on earth, laboring faithfully and effectively for the enlightenment and uplifting of their downtrodden sisters. And when the last and tragic episode in the drama of Jesus' life was being enacted, notwithstanding the apostles all fled but one, these women were all present, and not one either denied or betrayed him. 3. Sabbath at Tiberias. The Sabbath services of the apostolic party had been put in the hands of the women by Andrew upon instructions from Jesus. This meant, of course, that they could not be held in the new synagogue. The women selected Joanna to have charge of this occasion, and the meeting was held in the banquet room of Herod's new palace, Herod being away in residence at Julias in Perea. Joanna read from the Scriptures concerning woman's work in the religious life of Israel, making reference to Miriam, Deborah, Esther, and others. Late that evening, Jesus gave the united group a memorable talk on magic and superstition. In those days, the appearance of a bright and supposedly new star was regarded as a token indicating that a great man had been born on earth. Such a star having then recently been observed, Andrew asked Jesus if these beliefs were well-founded. In the long answer to Andrew's question, the Master entered upon a thoroughgoing discussion of the whole subject of human superstition. The statement which Jesus made at this time may be summarized in modern phraseology as follows. 1. The courses of the stars in the heavens have nothing whatever to do with the events of human life on earth. Astronomy is a proper pursuit of science, but astrology is a mass of superstitious error which has no place in the gospel of the kingdom. 2. The examination of the internal organs of an animal recently killed can reveal nothing about weather, future events, or the outcome of human affairs. 3. The spirits of the dead do not come back to communicate with their families or their one-time friends among the living. 4. Charms and relics are impotent to heal disease, ward off disaster, or influence evil spirits. The belief in all such material means of influencing the spiritual world is nothing but gross superstition. 5. Casting lots, while it may be a convenient way of settling many minor difficulties, is not a method designed to disclose the divine will. Such outcomes are purely matters of material chance. The only means of communion with the spiritual world is embraced in the spirit endowment of mankind,